And I'm good. Hey guys, my name is Jay. I'm an addict. Jay. I just want to take a moment of silence for the addict who is still suffering, who's not here tonight. Thank you. So I take that moment for the addict who still suffers, right? Because there are a lot of people out there that are unfortunate not to be here tonight, right? And we are so fortunate to be in this room, and I'm fortunate to be here tonight to share with you guys. Also take that moment for me, right? Because I'm nervous as hell. But my story, I just want to say too, I want to just bring this, to light. My story is going to be different from a lot of other people's, right? As so your stories are different from mine, right? We all come from different walks of life, as do I. And what I've learned early in my recovery is that I try to focus on the similarities, not the differences, right? Because if I focus on the differences, then I lose sight of what I'm trying to do, right? And then I find another reason to go back out and get a different story, right? And that's been my story. I've done that. I was introduced to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, and you're going to hear me share about Narcotics Anonymous because that's my fellowship. That's where I call home, right? But at the end of the day, a meeting's a meeting, right? And we all are striving for the same thing. But I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous in '97 when I was 18 years old, man. And I don't want to get too much into my childhood. I was brought up with two cops. My mom and my stepdad were cops for LAPD, and my dad was an outlaw biker. You know what I mean? So I was kind of dragged from both sides. I got high when I was a kid, and I carried over to when I was an early adult, and then I went to rehab. I got scared. Something scared me, and I went to rehab. When I went to rehab, I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous through that rehab, and I dove in, right? Because they told me, well, I stayed clean first off a bet. Someone bet that I couldn't stay clean for a year, right? And they had put money on me, my counselor in that rehab, and I stayed clean to just show them that I could, right? And I did. I stayed clean for 11 years. So I dove into Narcotics Anonymous, and I dove into service. I got a job. I started to get a sponsor, and I literally lived and breathed Narcotics Anonymous. And they would call me a NA Nazi, right? Because I would just preach Narcotics Anonymous, and I was so involved in the program and all I did was provide service, right? I picked people up for meetings. I talked to other recovering addicts, man. Through my tenure of clean time in that 11 years, I started sober livings. So my life, I lived and breathed Narcotics Anonymous, service to others, helping you out, and never helping myself out, right? Because when it came down to that 11 years to deal with Jay, I didn't know how to deal with Jay. Right, so then, I relapsed, right, and I always told myself that I wouldn't be that guy that comes in the room and takes that newcomer chip over and over and over again. So my ego kept me out, and while I was in my first recovery, I worked the steps. I worked 1, 2, and 3, and then I would find a different sponsor. And then I worked 1, 2, and 3, and I would find a different sponsor, and it was always because of that 4th step, right? I was too afraid to get one-on-one with another man and tell him my secrets and tell him the things that I've done in my addiction, right? And the things that I've done in my life, and so I always ran from that. And like I said, I was on the surface, I was clean and I was in recovery, but on the inside, I was dying, man, and I couldn't live. I didn't know how to deal with my disease that was deep down, and like anybody else here, I have demons, right? I have shit that I've done in my past, and shit that I'm not proud of, and I wasn't willing to deal with those things in my first stint in recovery. And towards the end of my 11 years, I had a son. I was with my son's mom. Horrible relationship. It was my first real relationship. Really bad relationship. We were together for 7 years. Miserable. The only thing good out of that came was my son. And we were together for 7 years, and we ended up separating. And then I got with a couple other chicks, and that didn't work out either. They ended up cheating on me or doing some kind of scandalous shit. So, this, like I said, it's my story. And I'm proud. I don't regret anything in my story. First off, because it made me who I am today, right? And I feel like the lessons that I've learned in my recovery, in my addiction, my recovery, my first recovery, has made me the person I am today, has made me the wise person that I am today, right? And so at the end of my 11 years, I started to go through a period in my life where I started to think about being with guys, right? So, and when I come up from a lifestyle that's not allowed, right? You're supposed to get a wife, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to have that white picket fence, you're supposed to have an old lady, and my dad was very racist. My dad's an original AB from state prison, and he didn't approve of that. And for a long time, I tried to gain my dad's approval. So I lived my life to try to gain his approval, right? And so when I started thinking about guys, I started to wonder about guys and started to find them attractive. I started to hate myself, right? And I started to tell myself that was wrong. And I started to, I didn't understand what was going on, right? And I didn't want to be that, right? So then I started dipping into that, and then I started to develop this hate for myself. And I started to enter a very dark period of my life, right? And to the point where I started thinking about killing myself, because I didn't want to be that person, right? I didn't want to have to come out to my mom or my dad or anything like that, because I was shameful, and so what I did is I couldn't talk to anybody in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous anymore. I thought people in Narcotics Anonymous were judging me. I thought they were hating on me, or they were talking shit behind my back, and I just came to a point where I couldn't talk to anybody. And the only thing I had was a best friend of mine who would take me to bars, and we would just dance, right? And just go out. And it started to be an every night thing. And swear to God, I wasn't going to drink, and we were going to stay clean through it. And you go to a barbershop long enough, you get a fucking haircut. You know what I mean? And that's what happened. We sat at the bar to get a Red Bull, and we ordered Jägermeister instead. We shot it back, and it was on and cracking. And so alcohol isn't a part of my story in my early recovery, but it is a part of my second recovery. And that's what got me started, right? So I started drinking, and I thought I was good. I was able to get up at work the next morning and go to work. I was able to do what I had to do, so I thought I was cool. I thought I wasn't a drug addict anymore. I didn't have to go to meetings, right? And I could drink successfable. And I ended up opening up a company while I started drinking, so I thought I was good. I was celebrating, and that happened. That lasted about a year, and somehow I was introduced to methamphetamines again, I completely got a different story, man. I completely created a different story for myself. I started using, and I got a couple friends that wanted to buy some dope, and my dope dealer told me, hey, you don't have to buy all these separate little half ounces. You could just buy in bulk and then sell to your friends, and then you can make a little bit of money and have some in your pocket. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And I did that. And it just kind of spiraled out of control, right? And I found myself buying and selling a lot of dope, and doing that was more important than running my company, right? So I ended up letting my sister run my company, and she ended up closing it down because it's not what she wanted to do with her life, right? So through that, when I did relapse, that relapse lasted 10 years. I didn't come back to narcotics. I came back to Narcotics Anonymous once in 2015, 5 years after I relapsed, and I got the same vibe, right? They didn't like me. They were talking shit about me. They were judging me, right? And so I went back out, and I was that dope fiend that went to jail, and sometimes I hear stories about people going to jail, and they're like, "Fuck, man, I fucked up. I need to change my life. I need to do something different. I need to get clean. I'm gonna get clean when I get out. I'm gonna go to rehab." And that wasn't my story, man. I went to jail, and I was thinking about what I can do to not get caught again, because I fucked up somewhere, and that was the insanity, right? That was my ego. That was the insanity that was taking over my mind and telling me that I could do this successfully. I can continue to make this money and continue to create this drama through my life. And looking back then, I didn't think about it. And you would think, having 11 years of recovery under my belt, I would have caught that, but I didn't. I was more focused on what I could do to not get caught the next time, right? And my proof, me getting out and staying out a little bit longer than I did the last time, was proof that I was doing something right, but I was just missing something. I wasn't doing something right. So next time I went to jail, I started to think about what I could do to make it different so I don't get caught, so I can stay out a little bit longer. You guys, I went to fucking county jail 6 times. And I was this every single time, except the last time. Every single time I thought, what can I do better? What can I do different to make it better? And never did the thought cross my mind that I needed to go to rehab. And when I was out there, I had material shit, man. I had cars, I had money, I had a place, I I had money paying my rent while I was in jail, someone else living in my house, and paying my shit while I was in my house. So I thought, thank you. So I thought I had it. I thought I had it. You know what I mean? And I didn't. And my last bid, I got arrested. I bonded out, and the DA dropped the case because they didn't have a good search. Something with the search was fucked up. So I thought I was on top of the world, man, because my lawyer got the shit thrown out. I paid good money for her. I was good. And 4 months later, I go to Mexico, and I come back, and there's a fugitive warrant for my arrest. And the federal government had indicted me on charges from that last raid, and I came, and then from there I came to Fred Brown. I was lucky enough to get bond after the second attempt, and I came to Fred Brown, man, and I'll be honest with you, that whole time in jail before I came to Fred Brown, I was high. The whole time, 3 months I was waiting for bond, I was high every single fucking day. And I had no intention on staying clean, just to fight this bid, to see where I can get with it and get out and see what's up. And I got out, I came here, Fred Brown, and I've never been to San Pedro either, and a friend of mine got me in here, and I got here, man, and I was nervous, man, and I started to do some soul searching, man. I'm not religious either, very spiritual, and I got out, man, and I started to realize through some meditation and going to meetings out here and getting with the people in the rehab, man, and hearing people's stories and kind of taking some time to reflect. And I have to say that pandemic kind of helped out a little bit, right? Because we weren't really allowed to go anywhere. So we had a lot of time to reflect, and I used that time to reflect, man. I did some meditation and learned how to meditate, man, and I found out that the problem in my addiction was all me. It was my resistance to wanting a better life, man, oh fuck, I just went blank. But I meditated, man, and what I was lacking, I had all that spirit, I had all that material shit, man. I was living good on the outside, man, but I was completely dead on the inside. Even if I wanted to get clean when I was getting high, I wouldn't have been able to. I was so fucking deep into it and so lost in not the addiction of money, the addiction of power, the addiction of addiction, right? And the addiction of sex, right? Because that was a big thing too. And so I wasn't only addicted to drugs, I was addicted to all those other fucking things, man. And that's what kept me out there, man. And when I came to Fred Brown, I realized that I was spiritually dead. It was going to take an intervention of law enforcement to get me clean. It wasn't going to happen on my own, man. And I stayed here for 90 days, and I was fighting my case, man, and they were telling me mandatory minimum 10 years, mandatory minimum 10 years. If you fight it, you're going to get a mandatory minimum of 20 years if they catch you at the box. And I hired 2 lawyers, went back and forth. It lasted about a year and a half. I went through Fred Brown, I went through RBH, stayed out here for 9 months, and then I finally ended up going home, right? And the problem with my recovery is I was struggling because I was never clean as a homosexual, right? And through my addiction, I got to embrace homosexuality, right? And in a sick way. And then I got out and I got to embrace homosexuality in a clean way, right? My life is, I don't know, it was important for me to get out and find meetings that supported my lifestyle, right? And it was important for me to sync up with people, other recovering addicts that experience the same type of shit. You know what I mean? So that I knew that we were still recovering. You know what I mean? So I went to a couple meetings, man. They had a lot of meetings online, and I wasn't really for those meetings online. I like in-person meetings. I like fellowshipping. I like talking to people. I like knowing that people are recovering. I like knowing how you're doing in your life. And I want to know how you're fucking feeling, how you're recovering. And if nobody knows me here except a couple of people, but I know for a fact today I'm the most caring person that I could ever be. I give a fuck about you before I give a fuck about me. But today it's a little bit different than it was before. Is I have balance. You know what I mean? And I have to make sure that I take care of me so that I can take care of you, right? I have to make sure that I take care of my spirituality, and I have to make sure I'm centered every day. And with that, today in my life, I did go to prison. I will say that I did go to prison. I went to federal prison. I ended up getting 30 months, and I did 14 of that, and I got out, and I don't have a date yet, but I go back for resentencing again. The federal government filed an appeal on my sentence because they didn't like the sentence that I got. I got out, and just maybe a month ago, my public defender now called me and said that they'll be calling me back in for a resentencing hearing because they want me to do that 10 years, right? So all I can do is hope that they see the change that I've made in my life, you know what I mean? And I can't really worry about any of that, right? I keep all that mind-boggling bullshit in the back of my mind because I know that if I keep it at the forefront of my mind, I'll get high. Because it's a good reason to get high. It's a good reason to not want to feel that pain or that fear, right? Because I get high because I'm scared. And so it's important for me until it's an actual fact and then we have a court date, then I'll start to kind of worry about that or start to explore what that feels like, right? But right now it's not healthy for me to feel that. And so I do put that at the back of my mind, and I'm shaking right now because I don't like to feel that, and I don't want to go back to where that was, right? But I will say this, my time in federal prison was a blessing because I was able to take more quiet time. I was able to do more reading. I was able to work my steps. I was able to work 6, 7, and 8 in prison. I was able to introduce Narcotics Anonymous to the federal prison system. When I got there, they had no meetings there. And when I left, they had 3 meetings going on a week. You know what I mean? So it was, they refused to let anybody come inside. They weren't allowing hospitals and institutions inside. But it was important for me to spread my message, and when I got there, everybody was high on Suboxone, Deuce, heroin, dope it's true what they say, when dope is more flooded in prison than it is out here, it's everywhere in prison, and everybody was high. Maybe there was like 3 of us in my unit, my 150-man unit, that was clean, or they say they're clean. But, and when they say they're clean, they're on Suboxone. That's Suboxone clean, right? And I don't knock anybody's struggle, it takes what it takes. But in there, before I left at the end of my term, when I left, a couple of guys came up to me separately and they said, man, I watched you this whole time you were here, man, and I for sure thought you were high for at least the first couples. There was no way you were in here and you weren't high. But I watched the way you walk and I watched the way you talk and your actions tell me that you were fucking clean, man. And you're an inspiration to me that you could stay clean through this bullshit. And I have chills right now. That's a fucking gift, man. For someone to actually be able to acknowledge that. And hopefully maybe I've touched one person in there by bringing those meetings in that's going to be introduced to Narcotics Anonymous when they get out, right? Because none of them thought they were meetings. They all said, a couple of them, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of those classes. I know a couple of people that go to those classes, and I'm like, okay, first of all, they're not classes, they're fucking meetings, and we share our experience, strength, and hope, right? So that the next person can catch something from that, hopefully, you know what I mean? And hopefully what I share tonight, touches just one person. That's all I'm looking to do. I'm only here to share my experience, strength, and hope so that one person in here finds a glimmer of hope that they can stay clean too, right? And no matter what we're going through in life, as long as we have that one person to lean on, or we have a meeting to come to, we're going to be okay. I know today that I welcome challenges. I do because I'm at a place in my life where I know for an absolute fact that anything that I walk through, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to croak from it. I'm going to grow from it. And any kind of growth that I have, any kind of growth that I go through is painful. Any kind of growth that I've gone through is painful, but I grow from it. And on the other side, I look back and I go, damn, I walked through that shit. Thank you. I went through that. By my prison sentence, I went through that. I did that. I didn't tell on nobody. I didn't do any of that. I got blessed with that time, and I walked through that shit. I showed up to that medium prison where they're fucking stabbing people all day long and fucking beating people up all day long. I did that, and I came out clean. I didn't even get high, and I had every excuse to get high. So take that hope from me that you can walk through anything. I can walk through anything. It's scary walking through it, and while I'm going through it, it's scary, but I know for a fact on the other side I'm going to grow from it, and I'm going to learn something from it, and I'm going to be able to share it with you, right? And that's what's important to me is that I keep my eyes wide open. and I watch and I observe, and I'm mindful of my surroundings, and I'm mindful of the things that I go through in my life. And it's important for me to stay clean because I need to live. I want to live. You know what I mean? And life's short. Life is short, man. And we don't. I know. I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. Thank you. But I want to make sure that today I live the best life that I can live.
That's right.
And I want to make sure that today I forward that hope to the next addict. You know what I mean? Everybody in here can stay clean. Everybody. We can all stay clean. It's our choice if we want to or not. My name is Dana, and I thanks.